Hi, everyone, and welcome to Devtoberfest Week 3. Today, we are going to talk about the UI5 Web Components 2.0 and the UI5 Web Components for React 2.0. We are back from our little tech ed break, and we are very much looking forward to this session. And with that, I hand it over to Peter, and off you go. Have fun.
Hello everyone. So my name is Petar Skelin, and I'll start with a quick crash course on UI5 Web Components in case you haven't heard. Web Components are a native browser technology, so you get to define your own tag, UI5 button in this case, and there's three things that you can put there: the markup, how it looks like, the styling to make it appear in a different way, and the interactions. We add JavaScript, and basically you tell the browser what to do with this tag name, UI5 button in this case. And because it's just a native HTML and the browser knows about it, you can use it in React and in any other technology. So UI5 Web Components, they are distributed on NPM. So you just do an NPM install. It's an open source project, and they are available as ES modules. So in a nutshell, an open source technology available using the browser standards, relying on everything coming from the browser. And they implement the Fiori design. So that's important. They're really the vehicle to make this UX consistency available across technology. So what's new in version 2.0? Before I show you that, let's see how we got to version 2.0, the road here. So we started with a proof of concept around 2017. And at that time, web components were not a proven technology. They didn't work in IE 11. We had to use polyfill. So it was really exploring the space of web components. We released a public beta in 2018 and started gathering lots of feedback and usage. And by 2021, we got really confident that we have a big set of components, that the technology is now supported across all browsers, and it was proven that it's the right fit for different technologies. Since version 1, 3 years have passed, so we have gathered lots of experience. The browsers have introduced new features. We have gathered feedback and usage. So we have the possibility with this major version to improve and make the framework slimmer and faster. So in a nutshell, we have two major pillars. On the left side, we have new components and new features that we have introduced. They make up this 2.0 release. And on the right side, we have new browser APIs that make some new things possible. We have used the chance to adopt those new APIs, and they resulted in some breaking changes. We also have an updated website where the documentation and all the examples are. So the biggest change that came with browsers this year is the native pop-ups. Pop-ups are really difficult in web development because you have to position them correctly. They have to stay on top of everything. And it's really hard to get an easy-to-use API. Browsers introduced this newly available API. It's this attribute that you see here, popover equals manual. So with this new attribute, you just tell the browser, I want this thing to show up on top of everything else. Don't cut it, don't move it, and it's really easy to use. So let's see how it looks like with the select component. You see the select component on the right? It's a drop-down that opens when you click on it. And on the left with orange, you can see the options that you passed, like t-shirt, jeans, jacket. So that's what you as a developer have to do. You pass the options to the select. And then the part on the top with the static area and the UI5 list is what the select is doing internally to make sure it stays on top. So it's a really complicated logic that we had to do manually before. But the biggest downside is you pass one option and the select renders a different one. So it's really a cut. It's not easy to use. You can't use it. It's really difficult. With 2.0 and with using the popover API, the option that you pass to the select is the option that gets rendered on the screen because you just tell the browser, I want this to be in a popover. What it does is it opens the possibility to have these custom options, like a select with 3 text columns. This was not possible previously, or it was very hard. You had to do it in 2 parts, and it was really cumbersome. Now with the new standards, it's so much easier. And also it gives you more possibilities. Like before, you could not use custom stylings, make a background, but now with 2.0, because it's the same option that you passed, you can do the styling, you can attach events. So it's so much easier to use, and we deleted lots of code in the framework related to the static area. A similar option, which I won't go into detail, was a new API with the form elements. When a UI5 web component is participating in a form, we had to do custom hidden inputs to make sure the form is submitted correctly. Now the browser has an API which lets us participate in the form submission directly. So it's again some code that we deleted from the framework, and the web components behave much better. So coming on the functionality side, we have new features. A big feature is the drag and drop support. It was introduced in the list, in the tree, and in the tab container. It's basically what you expect from a component, what the name suggests. And we have an updated visual design. The biggest feature here is the playground in our documentation. You can see it here at the bottom. It's a fully interactive editor. So you can play with the samples, you can edit them, share them, download them, and it's fully interactive. So quite modern experience, a big upgrade from the previous website. And by far the biggest reason to update our new components. The dynamic page is quite a big component. It has a tricky visual specification to get right when you scroll the custom header, the header snaps. So it's quite complicated to implement this specification. Now it's available as a web component. The UI5 form, again, has a complicated specification with the responsiveness on mobile devices, on different form factors, how many columns to show. And that's now, again, available as web component, which was asked by many people. With the AI-related components, they're again new. They're experimental and work in progress as the specification evolves, but they're available for preview. We have the tokenizer, which is used in the input internally, but you can now use it standalone. There is a UI5 text, but the biggest change here, which is worth its own section, is the table. So it has so much going for it that I'm going to hand over to Duke. So he's going to show you what's new with the table in 2.0.
Thanks, Peter. Hi, everyone. Also from me, I'm Duke. I'm a developer for the web component table. And I will show you today what we did with the new web component table. And before jumping into the new API and the new functionalities that we've introduced, I first of all want to explain why we've decided to recreate the web component table and kind of set aside the old one. There are 4 key reasons for that. The probably most important reason for us was accessibility. The current web component table has currently not the best accessibility, especially regarding keyboard support and screen reader support. For example, the current web component or the old web component table did not have any capabilities to focus cells or pop-ins. And with the new web component table, we wanted to essentially add those capabilities and provide a better experience for people that need these accessibility features. Second point for us was harmonization. We wanted to focus on look, feel, and functionality and have it similar across all different frameworks. A UI5 table, whether it be a sub UI5 table or a UI5 web component table, should feel similar across React, across sub UI5, across Angular, and other frameworks. So that was the main goal as well when we've decided to recreate this web component table. The third point was innovation. This is a chance for us now as well to improve existing APIs and incorporate, of course, new ideas. And the last point for us, why we've decided to create a new web component table and replace the old one, is essentially customization. We want you to give you, the developer, the chance to customize the tables to your needs and create and add your own features to the tables. So let's jump into what has changed. First of all, the API structure has changed a bit, and we've been inspired a lot by the HTML table. On the left, you see a normal HTML table. On the right, you see the new web component table. And in this case, the structure is pretty similar. We've got the table tag here, our UI5 table. We've got the TR tag for the table headers, which is in our case a special row called table header row, which is being slotted into the header row slot. And we've got special TH elements in the HTML table, and we've got special table header cells in the web component table. Table rows and table cells stay the same. So if you want to just have rows and cells, you just use the existing tags for that. And that's the big change for the API structure. So instead of having table columns, we have table header rows now and table header cells. This allows us to be a lot more flexible. For example, in future, we could add multi-level headers and stuff like that. Another big change I've teased it already is the keyboard handling. It's now similar to UI5 tables. You can now individually focus rows, cells, and pop-in cells via the keyboard by just pressing right arrow, left arrow, up and down, and so on and so forth. If you want to check out the keyboard specification, you can scan the QR code here. You'll get to the API documentation of the table where every keyboard interaction is documented. Another big change is the configurability of the horizontal behavior called overflow mode. In the past, it was only possible to have some kind of pop-in mode in the table. Now we want to give you the option to essentially decide whether you want to horizontally scroll. So if the table would overflow or does not fit into the viewport, a horizontal scroll bar is shown, or if the table does not fit anymore, the columns fit do not fit will put into the pop-in area. So if you want to use that mode, you just have to set pop-in as overflow mode value. And you can configure the pop-in order by configuring the following properties on the header rows: importance, which just defines the importance of this header cell or this column, a min width, width, and max width. This allows you to individually configure which cells or which columns will be put into the pop-in area at which time. We have support for sticky headers. So if you want to have your column headers or header rows to stick to the top, you just have to put the sticky property on your sticky header row or on the table header row. And we've got even more features or functionalities. We've got custom no data illustrations that you can put into your table. We've got interactive rows, navigation indication, and the possibility to easily align your cells accordingly or horizontally align your cells. And I've talked a lot about functionalities that are currently in the web component table, but a big part of the reason why we've created this new web component table is, of course, well, customizing your own table. That was the fourth point of our motivation. And what do we mean by customizing your table? We want to have a plug-and-play approach where you add features to your table that will enhance your table accordingly. So this allows you to decide whether you actually want to use a feature, whether you want to use different kinds of features or different versions of features, and it allows you to create custom table features yourself if you need to. And for that, we've introduced the feature concept. Features basically enhance your base table with additional functionalities, and these features need to implement the so-called iFeature interface. There are currently two public features available, the table selection feature and the table growing feature, and these features are put into the feature slot as seen here for table selection, for example, you just slot it into the feature slot. Let's get into the features itself. We've got the selection feature, which essentially just gives your table selection capabilities. This selection is key-based. This means you need to define a unique row key attribute. Instead of having it row index-based, now we've changed it to key-based, allowing for easier identification during sorting, filtering, and so on and so forth. This selection feature offers 3 selection modes: single, multiple, and none. And selected rows can be retrieved by the selected property of the feature. If you want to enhance your table with growing capabilities, you can use the UI5 table growing component. This will enhance your table with growing and data loading capabilities, which will offer you with 2 options, either button and scroll. In this picture here right now, you're seeing the option button. So a more button is rendered. If you use scroll, it's going to be scroll to load. So if you reach the end of the table, it will request more data. This UI5 table growing component is firing the load more event whenever growing is triggered. So you can then decide what you want to do, replace all rows, add more rows, and so on and so forth. Let's get into a quick outlook of what's to come. There are currently in development are 2 features. We are currently looking into developing row actions and offering them for the table. We are currently developing drag and drop support to drag rows inside of your table around to reorder them, as well as dragging rows from a table into another table or tree, and so on and so forth. We are currently evaluating virtualization capabilities for the web component table, and we're also looking into row highlights, grouping, and so on and so forth. So lots to come for the future, and we're really excited to have you see all these features coming up. Again, for the availability, the web component table, the new web component table is coming with 2.0 or UI5 Web Components 2.0 as an experimental component. So be aware that there might be changes to the API. And with that, I'll hand back over to Petter, who will tell you a bit about upgrading to UI5 Web Components 2.0.
Thank you, Duke. So the new table is bringing so much more to the table, so to say. It's really worth the upgrade just for the table alone, especially the virtual scrolling is the killer feature. So we had this need to make some breaking changes anyway, and upgrading to 2.0 means we had the liberty to make more breaking changes, and we used this chance to improve the APIs. So a lot of the breaking changes are renaming of APIs, like the parameter names or the parameter values. We use this chance to streamline. So there were similar APIs in different components that had different meanings. Now they are all the same. It makes the developer experience much better. I won't list all of the breaking changes or all of the kinds. We have a migration guide in our documentation, which you can feel free to inspect. But besides the migration guide, really the first point of contact with the new version is the React wrapper. So many developers use React to develop their applications. And that's why the React wrappers were the first project to really test out the 2.0 version. So now I'm going to hand over to Marcus and Lucas to show you what has changed in the web components for React 2.0.
Hi, and a very warm welcome also from my side. My name is Marcus, and together with Lucas, I'm now going to show you what's included in UI5 Web Components for React 2.0. and what are our release highlights and what you can expect from that release. So let's directly jump into our release highlights. As you already heard from Peter and Dirk, UI5 Web Components 2.0 offers plenty of new components and other improvements. So we also updated our UI5 Web Components dependency to the latest version. And with that, you get all new components in your application, as well as the adoption of new browser standards like the Popover API. In addition to that, we are now also supporting the release candidate and later on also the stable release for React 19. And with React 19, custom elements or web components are now also first-class citizens in the React framework. And maybe one remark to that topic, as the question already came up a couple of times. Now that React 19 is also supporting custom elements, we will still continue to work on the project UI5 Web Components for React, as there are still some advantages when using UI5 Web Components for React, instead of using UI5 Web Components directly in the React framework. Other than that, our new release contains a more streamlined API for components and enums, so we took the chance for the major release and challenged all of our prop names and compared them to how the naming pattern works in UI5 Web Components, and we now are totally aligned with this pattern, so the developer experience should become way better, as we are all now following the same naming conventions. The last release highlight is the removal of legacy code and also some dependencies. And this brings basically two benefits for you as end users. On the one hand, we are reducing our footprint and our total bundle size. And in addition to that, as we have now less code more maintained, we hope for a better quality of the library itself, because we expect to have less bugs due to the less code changes we need to do. And yeah, with that, how to migrate to UI5 Web Components for React 2.0. And first of all, let's look into the general changes. So first of all, we have dropped support for React 16.14 and React 17. And now we decided that our minimum required React version is React 18, which is already around for a couple of years. So the current versions for UI5 Web Components for React 2.0 will be React 18 and React 19. And in order to pave the road for a more easy migration on your end, we have created a code mod, which is applying to the UI5 Web Components for React project only. So if you have like an Angular or Vue project, we unfortunately don't have code mod. But if you are using UI5 Web Components for React in your project, you can give the code mod a try. And the code mod will, by a best effort approach, try to transform most of the breaking changes in the project. There will still be some manual work to do, but I'll come to that in a second. Also, one more remark on the code mod. Our code mod is a best effort approach. So please make sure to check the output of the code mod thoroughly in order to not break your application unintentionally. And in order to support you with the migration, we have migration guides for both UI5 Web Components and UI5 Web Components for React. And the UI5 Web Components for React migration guide is only going into the changes of our UI5 Web Components for React library. We also have linked the UI5 Web Components migration guide, so please make sure to read through both migration guides when doing the update. The last general change for the UI5 Web Components for React 2.0 release is that the UI5 Web Components enums are not longer re-exported by our project. And this is due to the fact that UI5 Web Components was not supporting TypeScript in the very beginning. So we decided to create TypeScript enums for all enums in the project. But as UI5 Web Components is now also supporting TypeScript since a couple of years, there's no need to have like this duplicated enum maintenance in both projects. So we decided to drop this re-export of the enums, and instead you can import the enums from UI5 Web Components now directly. And this is also something our code mod covers, for example. Then there are some more complex changes, which are the replaced components, because some components are not longer maintained, or other components are now newly created as UI5 Web Component. So we dropped our React implementation for that. So the first category is the analytical card, and there the migration is quite easy because you can just use the card as a drop-in replacement because it's 100% API compatible. Then we come to free components, which were also shared by Peter and Doug, which is the dynamic page, the form, and the text. For all free components, we had implementations in UI5 Web Components for React, but as these components are now available as web components, and also Angular and Vue can benefit from them, we decided to replace our existing implementations of those three components, and now the new web components are used there. And yeah, as mentioned before, those are a bit more complex, so please read through the migration guide when doing the transformation on those three components. And last but not least, there was a toolbar component in UI5 Web Components for React version 1. And now there's also a new component available as UI5 Web Component, which is the UI5 toolbar. So this is the recommendation where you should migrate to. And other than that, if for some reason you still need to use the old toolbar as it was in the V1 version of UI5 Web Components for React, we have moved the toolbar to a compatibility package, which should also pave the road for the migration to V2 in case there are some obstacles. And yeah, talking about compatibility, we have a compatibility packages available for both UI5 Web Components and UI5 Web Components for React. And selected components with really major changes has been moved there, so that you can migrate your application to V2, but for those selected components, stay on the V1 logic just to make sure there's not too many changes at once in your application. So you can install those compatibility packages with the npm install command or yarn pnpm, whatever package manager you are using. And currently we have this compatibility layer for three components. So the first component is the loader component. There we drop the implementation in UI5 Web Components for React because the loader component is not longer part of our Fiori design specs. And the recommendation is to use the busy indicator instead. But as the loader has like a different look and feel than the busy indicator, and you might not be able to just replace a loader with a busy indicator, we have offered you to import it from our compatibility package. The same holds true for the table. This is also available in the compatibility package with the V1 implementation, because the new table, which was shown to you by Dirk, has many new features in place, but there might be the one or the other thing which is not working exactly 100% the same like in the V1 table. So you can also use the old table from the compatibility package there. There's one limitation you need to be aware of. So as both tables are still using the same tag name, so UI5 table, you have to choose for one implementation in your app. So you cannot mix and mingle both the new and the old table in your app, but you really need to stick like to one table over the place in your application. And yeah, as mentioned before, the toolbar component from UI5 Web Components for React V1 is also included in there. Now, coming already to my last topic, the improved developer experience due to also new APIs like the Popover API. So in UI5 Web Components for React, whenever you use the dialog or Popover, we recommended to use create portal to make sure the Popover is mounted in the correct position in the DOM. So in this code example here, when you have created or opened a dialog inside a dynamic page or an object page or any other layout container, the popover might have been misplaced due to some miscalculations, due to some layouting done by the parent component. So the safe way was to create a portal, mount the dialog in this example to the document body and open it from there. This is pretty inconvenient in our opinion. So when going to UI5 Web Components for React 2.0, you can simplify this code, and due to the new Popover API, you can just open the dialog directly in the page without needing to create some portals and render it somewhere else in the DOM. So this should also reduce the cognitive complexity of your application. And yeah, with that, I would say enough theory from my side, and I would hand over to Lucas for some hands-on demo. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Marcus, and a warm welcome from me as well. I'm Lucas, another maintainer of UI5 Web Components for React, and I'll walk you through migrating an existing React project from V1 to V2 using our code mod. Now let's dive in. What you can see here is basically the movie database we developed for the 2023 Devtoberfest, and we changed it or adjusted it a bit, so it doesn't go beyond the scope of the session. But in general, it's the same. So as you can see here, we're still using V1 of UI5 Web Components and UI5 Web Components React. Let's change that to the latest V2 version, which is for UI5 Web Components. As of recording this, 2.3.0, and for UI5 Web Components React, it's 2.2.0. Now install it. Now the dependencies are installed. Let's go directly to using our code mod. I just quickly copied that script from our migration guide. And what we only need to configure here is the path to our source folder, because our components are only in the source folder, and therefore we only need to migrate that. And you can also decide if you use TypeScript or not. And if you're not using TypeScript, only JavaScript, then you can omit that option. Okay, and that's it. Now we can see there are, there are 3 skip files. That means there wasn't any modification necessary, and 3 files that were migrated. So we can also see that in this history here. Okay, there it is. App details and home has changes inside of it. Now let's check them out in detail. Let's start with the .tsx file. In this compare you can see that the list mode and pop-over placement time has changed, which are both enums, and enums are now only exported from UI5 Web Components and not from UI5 Web Components for React anymore. Also, the standard list item has changed its name to list item standard, which is also reflected here. And here you can see that some props were changed, and also a value of a prop was changed. So this is all covered by our code mod, but let's check out the component itself. And yeah, we can see that a TypeScript error is thrown here, which is valid because the show methods are not available anymore on popovers, dialogues, and so on, because now you can use the opener prop or property. We'll set it to the target ref, and also we have to tell the popover that it should be open, and then we just set the open property to true. You can also use these properties as props, React props, but in this case it's easier just setting it in the handler because we don't use them anywhere else. Yeah, and that looks good. I think this file is migrated completely. This migration is completed for that file. And now let's move on to the home component. Here, again, some component replacements. In this case, it's the version 1 table that was replaced with the version 2 table, which is reflected here. And yeah, that was pretty much it, our code mod covered. And let's jump into the file. So the first thing we notice is the use responsive content padding hook is not exported by UI5 Web Components for React anymore. This has the reason that we now recommend using common CSS, another library which I already installed, this one here. And this library is offering different CSS classes you can, for example, use for responsive content padding. More on this in our migration guide, and we also have a dedicated section for common CSS in our documentation. And yeah, let's remove these classes here. I just quickly only put an empty string in here. And now we have to import the different files, different classes. For this, I prepared, I quickly copy the imports, and I'll add them in the main TSX, because this way it's available everywhere in your application. So you can use the classes. I will also just copy real quick anywhere in your application. Back to home, back to the class name. So just quickly add them here. So we want to set the subcontent padding container class on the class where the hook returned its class. And what we need to do here as well, as inside there is the class uses a container query, wrap all of this inside a div. And now we can use this class, which is setting the container query to use inline size. Okay, that's it for the use responsive content padding hook. Now back to the table. One more thing that has changed for the table is that it now doesn't spread itself to the available width. So we have to add that. And also the pop-in is now handled on the table and not on the column anymore. It's also not called demand pop-in, but overflow mode. So we use overflow mode, set it to pop-in. And also the min width has to be adjusted. And the min width in version 1, in the version 1 table, the min width was referring to the whole table width, but now it's only for the column width. So we have to take that into consideration. So for these two columns here, we will use 100 pixels because they only have small numbers inside of them. And for the first table, we'll set it to, for the first column, sorry, we'll set it to 300 pixels. Okay, now I think there are no errors left. Nope. Then also home is migrated. Now for the last file or component, again some enums were removed here, and also some components, not only enums, also the dynamic page header and dynamic page title were removed and replaced with the object page header and object page title. This is because we are using the object page below here, and previously we used the same components for the dynamic page and the object page for the title and header area. But now, as the dynamic page is a UI5 Web Components, these React-only components are not compatible anymore. So we renamed our dynamic page title and our dynamic page header to object page title. So it's clear what to use and where to use. One more thing, because of the renaming, it wasn't that easy to cover the prop changes as well. So this has to be adjusted manually. So for heading, it's now header. For subheading, it's now subheader. Oh, this time I did it in the compare view. I hope that's all right. Let me check out the file itself. Details. There we go. And we have also the error markings. Another thing is the render white space prop, as the text component, the React-only text component of version 1, was now removed by or replaced by the version 2 text component of UI5 Web Components. So it's now a web component, and this web component currently doesn't offer render white space, but you can adjust that via standard CSS. We'll just omit that here because it doesn't really make a difference in this case. Okay, then there's another error. It's in the imports. Okay, this is just that it can't find placeholders. That's fine. Maybe add a JS here. Does that solve it? Oh yeah, does that solve it? But it shouldn't make a difference from 4/4-bit. Okay, and I think that was it. Let's start the application again, or the server again, and let's check out how it looks. Now the app is running again, and as you can see, it looks the same as before. Let's check if all of its features are still working. Search still works. Let's check out the avatar movie, and yes, this also looks good. The object page is still working. Also navigation of the object page is still working, and routing also did work. Theming looks also alright. So with that, we are finished with our migration. And we are finished with this session as well. Thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. And you can find all resources in the description below. And don't hesitate to leave a comment or ask questions in the comment sections.
All right. Thanks, everyone. And thanks, everyone out there for watching. There is a validation tutorial for this talk down in the description of this video. So make sure to check that out to earn points towards the Devtoberfest Grand Prize. And today is also Fun Friday, so make sure to check that session out as well. And make sure to join us next week as well for the final week of Devtoberfest 2024. And with that, I say thanks to all the speakers and thanks everyone for watching. Bye.